The emergency signal flashed across every council chamber in the galaxy. Red lights pulsed in rhythm with an alarm that had not sounded in 3,000 years. Ambassador Kervil of the Throne Worlds watched as the holographic display materialized before him, showing the spiral arm humans called the Orion Spur. His 3 hearts sank in his chest. Another one? His aide whispered beside him. Kervil did not answer. He simply watched as representatives from 847 civilizations connected to the emergency session. Some appeared in person, their ships already in orbit around the Council's central station. Others transmitted their presence across hundreds of light years, their holographic forms shimmering with distance and time delay. The Grand Curator, an ancient being whose species had been traveling the stars when Kervil's ancestors still lived in trees, raised one crystalline appendage. The chamber fell silent. The survey probes have confirmed it. The curator's voice resonated through translation fields. Sector 428b, third planet. They have achieved faster-than-light travel. A murmur rippled through the assembled delegates. FTL capability meant one thing. A new species had joined the galactic community, whether they knew it or not. Usually this called for celebration, preparation of first contact protocols, and the assignment of diplomatic mentors. The Council had perfected this process over 200,000 years, but no one was celebrating. "Show us the data," someone called from the back chambers. The holographic display shifted. A blue and green world appeared, rotating slowly. Continents and oceans swirled beneath white clouds. It looked peaceful, beautiful even. Kervil had seen 1,000 such worlds in his lifetime. Population approximately 8 billion, the curator continued. Technology level 4. Recently advancing to level 5 with the achievement of FTL. Biological classification, carbon-based, oxygen-breathing, standard bipedal configuration. They call themselves humans. They call their world Earth. Standard parameters, Ambassador Threlix noted from his position near the front. The xenopsychologist's tentacles twitched with what might have been curiosity. Why the emergency session? The Grand Curator's form seemed to dim. When beings that old showed emotion, younger species learned to pay attention. Show them the historical analysis, the curator said quietly. The display changed again. This time, it showed data streams, cultural archives, broadcast signals that human civilization had been pumping into space for the last century. The Council's translation AI had been working for months to decode it all. What it found made Kervil's blood run cold. The first image showed humans in primitive armor, fighting each other with metal blades. The death count scrolled beside it, millions. The second image showed larger armies, more sophisticated weapons. The death count grew. Then came images of cities burning, strange mushroom clouds rising into atmospheres, numbers that climbed into the tens of millions. They fight, Delegate Morin said dismissively. The warrior species had seen conflict before. Many young races do before they learn better. Keep watching, the curator said. The images continued. But between the wars, something else appeared. Humans building cities, creating art, reaching into space, then destroying themselves again, then rebuilding. Over and over, the pattern repeated. 10,000 years of recorded history, the curator explained. 42 major extinction events on their planet before they even evolved. They survived them all. In their recent history alone, 247 major wars, 16 near-extinction events of their own making. And they keep coming back stronger. The display shifted to show human explorers in hostile environments. They had spread across their entire planet, from frozen poles to scorching deserts, from the depths of their oceans to the heights of their mountains. Everywhere their biology said they should not survive, they built homes anyway. Look at this, the curator continued. A video played showing a human settlement on their moon, then stations orbiting their planet, then probes sent to every corner of their solar system. They reached space with technology that barely worked. Their first astronauts rode on controlled explosions. 30% of their early missions failed. They went anyway. Threlix leaned forward, his analytical mind clearly engaged. Failure rate of 30%, and they continued. What motivated them? That is what concerns us, the curator said. We have analyzed their cultural transmissions, their entertainment, their literature. They have a concept they call spite. Translation error? Someone asked. No. They have multiple words for it. Spite, stubbornness, bloody-mindedness. The refusal to quit even when quitting is the logical choice. Especially when quitting is the logical choice. The chamber erupted in confused noise. The curator waited for silence before continuing. They tell stories about last stands, about dying rather than surrendering, about winning when victory was impossible. And these are not cautionary tales, these are their heroes, their inspirations. Kirval watched as more data scrolled past, human soldiers holding positions against overwhelming odds, scientists working on problems that killed them before they found solutions, explorers walking into certain death because someone had to be first. They worship the concept of never giving up. The curator said, "We found broadcasts of their sporting events. They cheer loudest not for those who win easily, but for those who win from behind, who overcome impossible situations. They have a saying, 'It's not over until it's over.'" Surely their governing bodies are more rational, Ambassador Kell suggested. Her species prided themselves on logical civilization management. The curator made a sound that the translation field rendered as bitter laughter. Their governments are barely a few thousand years old, and already they have risen and fallen dozens of times. But each time the humans simply build new ones. We found records of a city that was destroyed and rebuilt 7 times. 7 times. They have a different saying for this. Rome wasn't built in a day, but it burned in one, so we built it again. The holographic display now showed human ships, crude things that looked like they might fall apart under stress, but the design specifications were clear. Weapon systems, shield generators, FTL drives that worked on principles the Council had discarded as too unstable. They achieved FTL in 3 months, the curator said, from first theoretical framework to working prototype in 90 local days. Our fastest species took 2 years. Humans did it in 3 months because one of their nations announced they had done it first. The others could not accept being second. Competition drives innovation, Morin noted. Competition drives them in everything. They compete in ways we cannot comprehend. They race each other. They fight each other. They challenge each other to survive in hostile environments for entertainment. We intercepted a broadcast showing humans deliberately stranding themselves on uninhabited islands to prove they could survive. For fun. The chamber had gone very quiet now. There is more, the curator continued. We analyzed their biology. They are pursued predators. They do not have the strongest bite or the sharpest claws, but they have something else. Endurance. Their ancestors hunted prey by simply following it until it collapsed from exhaustion. They are persistence incarnate. Threlix's voice cut through the silence. What are you proposing, Grand Curator? The ancient being's form solidified, growing brighter. I propose we do what we have never done in 200,000 years of Council history. I propose we mark their space with an exclusion boundary. I propose we classify them as Category 12, do not engage. I propose we stay far, far away and watch very carefully what happens next. You want us to quarantine them? To treat them as a threat? Kell sounded shocked. No, the curator said softly. I want us to treat them as inevitable. Because everything in their history suggests that if we make contact now, if we challenge them or threaten them, or even just get in their way, they will not stop until they have overcome whatever obstacle we represent. And I am not certain the Council would survive being seen as humanity's obstacle. The vote was called. For the first time in Council history, the decision was unanimous. Humanity would be left alone. The exclusion boundary was established at 50 light-years around their space. Warning beacons were placed. Every species was informed. Stay away from Earth. In his chamber, Kirval watched the blue and green planet rotate on his display. Somewhere down there, 8 billion humans went about their lives, completely unaware that the galaxy had just decided they were too dangerous to meet. He wondered how long the exclusion boundary would hold. The Zelthani High Commander Zareth stood on the bridge of his flagship, staring at the blue world on his view screen. Behind him, 199 more ships waited in formation, their weapons charged and ready. The greatest conquest fleet his people had assembled in 5 generations, and it would all be over in a matter of days. The Council is transmitting again, Commander, his communication officer reported. They demand we withdraw immediately. Zareth waved a dismissive claw. The Council grows soft in their old age. They see threats in every shadow. He gestured at the primitive planet below. Look at them. They have barely left their own star system. Their technology is centuries behind ours. The Council marked them as dangerous? Foolishness. The Zelthani had been expanding their empire for 300 years. They had pacified 47 worlds, bringing order and Zelthani rule to species that could not govern themselves properly. This Earth would be number 48, and its location made it perfect for their needs, rich in resources, positioned well for future expansion, and inhabited by a species too primitive to pose any real threat. "Send the standard ultimatum," Zareth commanded. "Surrender within 1 planetary rotation or face pacification protocols." The message was transmitted in all known languages, backed by a demonstration of power, a single blast from the flagship's main weapon that vaporized one of Earth's small orbital stations. Then they waited. The response came in less than an hour. A human voice, translated by Zelthani systems, calm and almost friendly. "This is Admiral Chen of the Earth Defense Force. Thank you for your message. Our response is no. Also, that was the International Space Station you just destroyed. It had 15 scientists on board conducting cancer research. We're going to need you to apologize for that." Zareth's mandibles clicked in amusement. "Apologize? They demand an apology? Activate pacification protocols. Level 1 bombardment of military installations. They will learn respect." The fleet moved into position, targeting computers locked onto human military bases, communications arrays, power generation facilities. Standard procedure. Destroy their ability to coordinate and resistance crumbles within days. The bombardment began. That was when everything went wrong. "Commander," his tactical officer shouted. "Incoming missiles! Thousands of them. Impossible. Our shields can handle primitive." The first wave hit. Zelthani shields, which had turned away attacks from species far more advanced than these humans, flickered and died. The missiles punched through, tearing into 3 ships before anyone understood what was happening. "How are they penetrating our shields?" Zareth demanded. "I don't know. The missiles are modulating their frequencies, matching our shield harmonics exactly." "That's not possible. We only activated our shields 20 minutes ago." But it was happening. Human missiles, crude things that looked like they were built from spare parts, were somehow matching Zelthani's shield frequencies in real time. 3 ships became 5. 5 became 12. "Adapt the shields." "New frequency," Zareth ordered. They did. For exactly 4 minutes it worked. Then the human missiles adapted again. On Earth's surface, Dr. Sarah Chen watched the orbital battle on displays while her brother commanded the defense force. Around her, 300 scientists and engineers worked at a pace that would have killed most species. "Got another one," someone shouted. "Shield frequency mapped and countered." "How long did that take?" Sarah asked. 7 minutes from activation to penetration. "Too slow. We need it faster." "Jenkins, what do we have on their power systems?" A young engineer looked up from his console, eyes red from lack of sleep. "The energy signature suggests they're using quantum coupling." "If we can disrupt the coupling field, can we? Maybe?" "I mean, I'd need to test it, but theoretically." "Build it. You have 2 hours." 2 hours? Dr. Chen, that's insane. The Zelthani are in orbit destroying our cities. Insane is what we have. Make it work. In orbit, Commander Zareth watched his fleet fall apart. 20 ships gone. 30. The humans were not fighting like any species he had encountered. They were not trying to drive the fleet away. They were trying to destroy it. "Pull back to defensive formation," he ordered. "Focus all shield power. Commander, new contacts." "Human ships incoming." Zareth stared at the tactical display. Ships were rising from Earth. Crude vessels that looked like they had been assembled in weeks rather than years. Civilian transports with weapons welded to their hulls. Scientific vessels modified into gunships. Even what appeared to be an orbital construction station that someone had attached engines to and was flying directly at his formation. "They are throwing everything they have at us," his tactical officer said, voice tinged with respect despite himself. "Then we will destroy everything they have," Zareth replied, but doubt crept into his voice. The battle lasted 4 more days. 4 days of constant, relentless human attacks. They did not stop. They did not retreat to regroup. When the Zelthani destroyed their ships, humans abandoned them and continued fighting in escape pods. When those were destroyed, human pilots rammed their damaged vessels into Zelthani cruisers, and they kept learning. Every weapon the Zelthani used, humans found a counter within hours. Every tactic humans adapted to and turned against them. It was like fighting an enemy that evolved in real time. On the 5th day, with only 37 ships remaining from his fleet of 200, Zareth received a new transmission. Commander Zareth, Admiral Chen's voice said, still calm, still friendly. We've finished reverse engineering your FTL drives. We know where your homeworld is. We're coming for you. You would not dare. You killed civilians. Scientists, people who were trying to cure diseases. Did you think we would just forget that? The Admiral's voice went cold. We have 43 ships ready to launch. They're not pretty, but they'll get us to your space. And we're very, very angry. For the first time in his military career, Zareth felt fear. These humans meant it. They would actually follow his fleet home and bring war to Zelthani space. The Council is offering to mediate, his communication officer said quietly. They have a ship standing by. Zareth wanted to refuse, wanted to fight to the last ship. But he had seen what humans did when they fought to the last. They won. Establish contact with the Council, he said, each word tasting like defeat. The Council mediator arrived within hours, an ancient Throne World's diplomat who looked at Zareth with something between pity and contempt. I warned you, Ambassador Kervil said simply. We all warned you. The negotiations took place on neutral ground, a council station hastily positioned between Earth and the remaining Zelthani fleet. Zareth sat across from Admiral Chen and his sister, Dr. Sarah Chen, trying to salvage something from the disaster. The Zelthani Empire will withdraw completely from human space, Kervil read from the treaty. You will provide full technological databases as reparations. You will rebuild the space station you destroyed, and you will issue a formal apology. And in return? Zareth asked bitterly. Admiral Chen smiled. It was not a friendly expression. In return, we won't come to your homeworld and show you what we learned from your ships. This is extortion. No, Dr. Chen said, speaking for the first time. Her voice was soft but carried weight. This is mercy. You came to our home and killed our people. We could come to yours and do the same. But we won't because we're better than that. Hopefully you'll learn to be better too. Zareth signed the treaty. He had no choice. As the Zelthani fleet jumped away, their databanks emptied and their pride shattered, Admiral Chen stood on the bridge of humanity's first true warship and looked at the stars. Sir? His first officer asked. What now? Now? Chen smiled. Now we build better ships. Because if one species found us, others will too. And next time, we'll be ready. Across the galaxy, the Council watched in silence as humanity took its first real step into galactic civilization. They had defeated a conquest fleet in less than a week. They had forced an empire to surrender. They had reverse-engineered technology in days that should have taken years, and they had done it all while apologizing for the inconvenience. Ambassador Kervil updated humanity's file personally. Category 12, Do Not Engage, became Category 12, Alpha, Do Not Provoke. The exclusion boundary was expanded to 75 light-years, and the Council waited to see what humans would do next, hoping that no one else would be foolish enough to test them. The Zelthani had learned their lesson. The question was whether anyone else would be smart enough to learn from the Zelthani's mistake. Somewhere in the depths of space, a pirate confederation received news of the Zelthani defeat and began planning. They looked at Earth and saw opportunity. They would learn their own lesson soon enough. 115 years had passed since the Zelthani incident. In that time, humanity had spread to 47 star systems, built colonies on 63 worlds, and established trade relationships with 12 different species. They had also fought 3 more wars. The Council watched all of it with growing concern. They are not following the pattern, Ambassador Kervil said during a council session. He was old now, even for his long-lived species, but he had made humanity his life's work. Other species expand through conquest or peaceful negotiation. Humans do both, sometimes at the same time. The holographic display showed human colonies spreading across their region of space like a virus, but not an aggressive one. They traded. They shared technology. They made friends with alarming ease. But when threatened, they responded with disproportionate force. The Krillax Consortium tried to claim 3 human colonies last month, Delegate Morin reported. The warrior species had gained new respect for human combat effectiveness. They sent a fleet of 90 warships, and, someone asked, the human colonists evacuated the planets, filled them with automated defenses, and then ambushed the Krillax fleet from behind. They captured 47 ships intact and returned them with a note, apologizing for the inconvenience, but requesting the Krillax please stop trying to steal human Planets apologizing while destroying their fleet, Kervil muttered. Classic human behavior. The Krillex had retreated, confused and embarrassed. The captured ships were now in human museums, with plaques explaining the battle and expressing hope for future friendship with the Krillax people. The Shen Collective made a similar attempt, another delegate reported. They used economic warfare, trying to force human colonies into debt servitude. Let me guess, Kervil said. The humans found a creative solution. They paid off the entire debt in 3 months by selling something called entertainment media to 200 different species. Then they offered to help the Shen Collective reorganize their economy to be more efficient. The Shen are now their trading partners. Kervil pulled up the data. Humans had flooded the galactic market with stories, music, games, and art. Species across the galaxy were consuming human culture at an alarming rate. Their concept of underdog victories had become particularly popular among younger species. They are weaponizing friendship, Kervil said quietly. They make themselves indispensable, and then when you threaten them, you are not just fighting humans. You are fighting everyone who benefits from human presence. Surely this is good, a delegate suggested. They integrate peacefully, until someone tries to hurt them, Morin interrupted. Did you see what they did to the harvesters? Everyone had seen it. The harvesters were a nomadic species that survived by raiding isolated colonies for resources. They had targeted a human mining operation on a distant asteroid, killing 23 miners and taking their equipment. The human response had been surgical and terrifying. Within 2 weeks, humanity had tracked down every Harvester clan ship in a 40-light-year radius. They did not destroy them. Instead, they disabled them, boarded them, recovered their stolen equipment, and left behind detailed files on every crime each Harvester ship had committed against any species in the last decade. They did our job for us, the Council's law enforcement coordinator said. They gathered evidence we had been trying to collect for years. Then they transmitted it to every affected species along with the exact coordinates of each Harvester ship. How many Harvester clans survived? Someone asked. None. The species they had victimized destroyed them all within a month. The humans did not kill anyone directly, Kervil noted. They simply ensured justice was served by the appropriate parties. Efficient, terrifying, completely, in line with Council law. But the incident that truly frightened the Council came 70 years after first contact. The Draxian Pirate Confederation was the largest criminal organization in the galaxy, operating across 200 systems with a fleet of over 3,000 ships. They had existed for centuries. Too large and too distributed for any single species to eliminate. They made the mistake of kidnapping human colonists for ransom. The colony ship, New Hope, was seized while traveling to a new settlement. 417 humans, including 73 children, were taken hostage. The Draxians demanded an enormous ransom in technology and resources. Humanity's response came in 3 parts. First, they paid the ransom immediately. Every resource the Draxians asked for, delivered within the requested time frame. The hostages were released unharmed. Second, humanity thanked the Draxians for keeping the colonists safe and expressed hope they could avoid future conflicts. Third, humanity declared war on the entire Draxian Confederation. They paid the ransom and then attacked anyway? Delegate Kell was horrified. That violates every principle of hostage negotiation. Watch what happens next, Kervil said grimly. The human fleet did not attack Draxian strongholds. That would have taken years and cost millions of lives. Instead, they did something the Council had never seen before. They made the Draxians irrelevant. Human ships appeared in every system where Draxians operated. But they did not fight the pirates directly. They offered free protection to anyone who asked, free trade escorts, free defense systems for vulnerable colonies, and they did it all while broadcasting every Draxian crime, every victim, every attack, across every communication channel in the galaxy. They turned it into a public relations campaign, Kervil explained to the stunned Council. They made the Draxians look like bullies picking on innocents while humanity looked like noble protectors. Species that had tolerated the Draxians for centuries suddenly started seeing them as unacceptable threats. Within 6 months, the Draxians could not operate openly anywhere. Their recruitment dried up. Their safe harbors turned them away. Species that had ignored them for generations now hunted them actively. Within a year, The Draxian Confederation had collapsed. The humans had destroyed a centuries-old criminal empire without fighting a single major battle. They had simply made it impossible for the Draxians to function. The efficiency is remarkable, Trellick said during an emergency analysis session. The xenopsychologist had been studying humanity for decades now. But look at the pattern. Every species that attacks humans, threatens humans, or harms humans is not just defeated. They are dismantled, systematically, thoroughly. The humans do not stop until the threat is completely eliminated. Revenge? Someone suggested. No, Trellick corrected. Problem solving. Humans do not seek revenge for emotional satisfaction. They eliminate threats to prevent future harm. There is a difference. Revenge is temporary satisfaction. This is permanent solution. The holographic display showed human space now. 47 star systems, dozens of colonies, and defense pacts with over 30 different species. Humanity had become a major power in their region in just over a century. They are still friendly, Curvell noted. They trade fairly. They share technology. They help species in need, but they remember every threat, Morin finished. And they ensure those threats never threaten anyone again. The council pulled up records of human entertainment, looking for insight into their psychology. What they found was disturbing in its consistency. Human stories celebrated heroes who protected others, who stood against impossible odds, who never gave up, never surrendered, never stopped fighting until everyone was safe. Their villains were not those who fought against them, but those who harmed innocents. They have a saying, Trellick said, displaying the translation. It's not about the size of the dog in the fight. It's about the size of the fight in the dog. They celebrate determination over strength, persistence over power. Another saying, he continued, we don't start fights. We finish them. The council sat in silence processing this information. They are creating a network, Curvell said slowly, understanding dawning. Every species they help, every trade agreement, every defense pact. They are building alliances not through domination, but through mutual benefit, and those alliances make them stronger. Should we intervene? Kell asked. How? Morin laughed bitterly. They have broken no council laws. They trade fairly. They only fight in self-defense or defense of allies. They are model galactic citizens except for the terrifying efficiency with which they eliminate anyone foolish enough to attack them. The display showed the updated human classification. Category 12 Alpha. Existential threat level if provoked. We need a new category, Curvell said quietly. They are not just dangerous when provoked. They are transformative. Species that interact with humanity change. They adopt human concepts, human determination, human stubbornness. Is that bad? Someone asked. Curvell thought about the young species who now told stories about underdogs and impossible victories, about colonies that refused to surrender to superior forces because humans had shown them it was possible to win anyway, about criminals who had learned that harming innocents would bring down overwhelming retaliation from not just humans, but everyone who had learned from human example. I do not know, he admitted, but I know the galaxy will never be the same. The exclusion boundary remained at 75 light-years. But it had become less of a quarantine and more of a suggestion. Trellick had spent 40 years studying humanity, and he still did not understand them. His research station orbited a dead world in neutral space, far from human territory but close enough to intercept their communications, observe their ships, and analyze their cultural broadcasts. The council had given him unlimited resources and one simple directive: figure out what makes humans different. He thought he had been making progress. Then he watched a human entertainment program that broke his entire theoretical framework. The program showed a human family: mother, father, 2 offspring, and their pet. The pet was a creature called a dog, descended from pack predators that humans had domesticated thousands of years ago. The program was labeled as comedy. In the episode, the family's dwelling caught fire. The logical response would be to evacuate immediately. Instead, the father ran back into the burning building to save the dog. He nearly died. The family was distraught. The dog survived. The audience reaction, according to the program's metrics, was overwhelming positive emotion. They risked death for an animal, Trellick muttered to his recording device. Not even for a member of their own species. For a creature they had domesticated, and other humans celebrated this behavior. He pulled up more data, Humans keeping creatures as companions was not unusual by itself. Many species did this. But humans took it to extremes that defied logic. They kept Earth predators as pets, creatures that could kill them. They kept reptiles, birds, fish, even insects. There were records of humans forming emotional bonds with species from other planets, despite completely incompatible biology. One file showed a human colony that had adopted a species of small, six-legged creatures the colonists called space cats despite looking nothing like Earth cats. The creatures had no economic value, limited intelligence, and a tendency to destroy furniture. The humans loved them anyway. They bond with anything, Threlix recorded. Emotional attachment appears to be their default state, not a selective behavior. But that was just the beginning of what confused him. Threlix pulled up human military records next, looking for patterns in their combat behavior. What he found contradicted everything he thought he understood about survival instinct. Human soldiers repeatedly ran toward danger to save wounded comrades. They threw themselves on explosive devices to protect others. They held defensive positions long past the point where retreat was the only logical option. One particular incident stood out. A human medical officer named Desmond Doss who had refused to carry weapons due to religious beliefs, but had still joined the military. During a single battle, he had saved 75 wounded soldiers while under constant enemy fire, lowering them down a cliff one at a time while being shot at. He was not even armed, Threlix said to himself. He could not defend himself. Logic dictates he should have stayed in cover. Instead, he went back into combat 75 times. Doss had survived and received their highest military honor. Other humans celebrated his actions as heroic, not insane. Threlix created a new file. Human irrationality patterns. But the more he studied, the more he realized it was not irrationality. It was something else. Something his species had never developed. Humans had dozens of words for giving up. Surrender, quit, concede, yield, capitulate, abandon. But their culture celebrated none of them. Instead, they celebrated persistence, determination, grit, stubbornness. They had entertainment showing humans in impossible situations. A human trapped alone on a hostile planet who survived for years using nothing but determination and ingenuity. A human ship stranded in distant space that took 70 years to return home, and the crew never stopped trying. Humans facing extinction-level threats and winning through sheer refusal to accept defeat. These are their heroes, Threlix recorded, not the strongest or smartest. Those who refuse to quit. He found a human phrase that summed it up. Hold my beer. The phrase made no literal sense in translation. But the cultural context was clear. It meant, watch me do something dangerous, stupid, or impossible because someone said I could not do it. Humans were motivated by spite as much as by hope. Threlix tested this theory. He found instances where humans had accomplished incredible feats not because they needed to, but because someone had told them it was impossible. The first human faster-than-light drive had been built in 3 months because another human nation claimed to have done it first. Their space program had accelerated dramatically when 2 human nations competed to reach their moon first. Their medical advances often came from researchers who refused to accept that certain diseases were incurable. They treat impossible as a challenge rather than a limit, Threlix noted. But what truly frightened him was what he found in their approach to existential threats. Most species, when faced with extinction-level dangers, responded with fear and desperation. They tried to flee, hide, or accept their fate. Threlix pulled up records of how different species had reacted to the asteroid impacts. Supervolcanoes, or climate disasters. Then he looked at human responses to similar threats. When an asteroid threatened Earth, humans did not pray to their gods or accept extinction. They built machines to redirect it. When their climate changed dangerously, they did not migrate to safer areas. They developed technology to change it back. When diseases emerged that killed millions, they did not accept it as natural selection. They declared war on the diseases and kept fighting until they won. They do not accept extinction as a possibility. Threlix recorded, his appendages trembling slightly. Other species see extinction as the end. Humans see it as a problem to solve. He found a human entertainment program that illustrated this perfectly, a show about humanity facing invasion by a superior alien force. The humans in the show did not try to negotiate or surrender. They fought back using improvised weapons, guerrilla tactics, and sheer determination. The show's title was 2 words: Never Surrender. It had been one of the most popular entertainment programs in human history. Threlix began compiling his report for the council. The more he wrote, the more disturbed he became. Human psychology lacks a critical safety feature, he wrote. Most intelligent species develop an acceptance of defeat as a survival mechanism. When faced with overwhelming force, they surrender to preserve life. Humans possess this capability but rarely use it. Instead, they possess what they call hope, which appears to be the belief that victory is possible regardless of evidence to the contrary. He included examples: humans who had survived in lifeboats for months at sea, humans trapped in collapsed buildings for weeks who survived through sheer will, humans who overcame injuries that should have been fatal because they refused to accept death. Furthermore, he continued, humans appear to be motivated by protective instinct that extends beyond genetic relatives. They will sacrifice themselves for strangers, for other species, even for abstract concepts like freedom or justice. This behavior makes them unpredictable in conflict situations. Threlix pulled up the most recent incident, a human cargo ship that had encountered a disabled vessel from the Sarin species, a civilization that had no diplomatic relationship with humanity. The Sarin ship was drifting in a decaying orbit around a gas giant, life support failing. The human ship had diverted from their route, used their cargo bay to shelter the Sarin crew, and delivered them safely to the nearest Sarin station. When offered payment, the humans had refused, saying they were just being neighborly. The Sarin, confused by this behavior, had declared themselves eternal friends of humanity. They were now lobbying the Council to establish formal diplomatic relations with Earth. This is their strategy, Threlix wrote. Perhaps without even meaning to, they create alliances through simple kindness, then maintain those alliances through demonstrated reliability. Species that interact with humans find themselves changed by the contact. He included data on species that had adopted human cultural concepts. The young Karashi civilization had started a military tradition of never leaving soldiers behind after observing human rescue operations. The merchant Talani had adopted human negotiation tactics that emphasized mutual benefit over maximum profit. Even the warrior Morin had started teaching human concepts of proportional response and protecting civilians to their soldiers. Humans are infectious, Threlix concluded. Not biologically, but culturally and psychologically. Their determination, their refusal to accept defeat, their tendency to help anyone who needs it. These concepts spread to other species upon contact. The galaxy is becoming more human without even realizing it. He saved the report and prepared to transmit it to the Council. But first, he added one final section, the conclusion that had taken him 40 years to reach. We have classified humanity as Category 12 Alpha, existential threat level if provoked. This classification is incomplete. Humans are not simply dangerous when provoked. They are transformative. They change the galaxy by their presence. The question is not whether we should fear humanity. The question is whether we should fear a galaxy that thinks like humanity thinks, because that galaxy will not accept limits, will not accept defeat, will not abandon hope even in the face of impossible odds. I do not know if this is good or bad for the Council's future. 2,000 years had passed since humanity first achieved faster-than-light travel. The galaxy barely recognized itself. Ambassador Curvel, whose consciousness had been transferred to 3 different clone bodies over the centuries to extend his lifespan, stood in the council chambers and looked at the updated galactic map. What he saw would have been unthinkable to his younger self. Human space now encompassed 10,000 worlds across 300 star systems. But that number told only part of the story. Humans had not conquered these worlds. They had settled them, traded for them, been invited to them, or simply found empty ones and built homes. What made the map truly remarkable was everything else. Blue lines showed human trade routes, 847, different species connected in a network of commerce and cultural exchange. Green markers indicated human diplomatic missions, embassies on 6,000 alien worlds. Yellow highlights showed mutual defense pacts. 4 and 2 and 3 species had formal military alliances with humanity. They did it without conquest, Delegate Morin said, her voice carrying a mix of respect and disbelief. 2,000 years and not a single war of aggression. They fought 73 defensive wars, Curvel corrected. And they won all of them. But yes, not one war of conquest. How is that possible? A younger delegate asked. Every expansionist species in Council history eventually turned to conquest. It is the nature of growth. Threlix, now the Council's senior xenopsychologist, answered, because humans do not see growth and conquest as synonymous. They have a saying, there is enough room in the galaxy for everyone, and they genuinely believe it. The holographic display shifted, showing human colonies. They were not like the sterile, efficient installations of older species. Human colonies were chaotic, colorful, and diverse. Each one reflected not just human culture but the cultures of dozens of alien species living alongside them. They invite other species to settle on their worlds, Curvell explained. Not as servants or second-class citizens, but as equals. There are human colonies where humans are the minority population. That is insane, someone protested. They give away control of their own worlds? They do not see it as giving away control, Threlix said. They see it as sharing. Another human concept that has spread across the galaxy. And it had spread. The map showed it clearly. Species that had never cooperated before were now working together on joint projects. Having learned from human example, ancient rivals had established peaceful borders after humans mediated their disputes. Younger species that might have turned to conquest had instead adopted human models of expansion through trade and cooperation. The galaxy is more peaceful now than at any point in recorded history, Curvell said quietly. Crime rates are down. Wars between species have decreased by 60%. Technological advancement has accelerated across all civilizations, and we can trace all of it back to human influence. So we were wrong to fear them? The younger delegate asked. Curvell and Threlix exchanged glances. No, Curvell said. We were right to fear them. We just did not understand what we should fear. Before anyone could ask what he meant, the alarm sounded. The council chamber erupted into chaos as data flooded every display. The Void Scourge had returned. The name had not been spoken in 12,000 years, but every ancient species remembered. The Void Scourge was not a species or an empire. It was a force of nature, an extragalactic swarm that consumed everything in its path. It had destroyed civilizations before, and the Council had survived only by retreating to their fortress worlds and waiting centuries for the Scourge to pass. Now it was back, and the projections were catastrophic. 2 million ships detected at the Galactic Rim, the military coordinator reported, voice shaking. They are following the same path as last time. 300 systems will be consumed in the first wave, 2,000 more in the second. They will reach core Council space in 18 months. Initiate evacuation protocols, the Grand Curator commanded. All species retreat to designated fortress worlds. We will wait them out as before. Wait, Curvell said. The human systems are in the first wave's path. The chamber fell silent. Everyone looked at the projection. Earth itself would be consumed in 7 months. They will have to evacuate, someone said. There is no other option. 10,000 worlds, Morin said quietly. Billions of humans and the alien species living with them. How do you evacuate that many people in 7 months? You cannot, Threlix said. Not possible. Even if we provided every transport ship in the Council fleet, we could not move that many beings in time. The Grand Curator's ancient form seemed to age further. Then humanity faces extinction. We must focus on saving those we can. Curvell started to speak, to protest, to suggest something, but the Council had already moved on to evacuation planning. Species debated which fortress worlds could hold the most refugees, which technologies must be preserved, which cultural archives must be saved. No one mentioned humanity again. They were already written off as lost. Curvell left the Council chambers and returned to his office. He opened a communication channel to Earth, knowing it was futile but unable to do nothing. Admiral Chen, the great-great-grandson of the admiral who had defeated the Zelthani, appeared on the display. He looked calm. Behind him, Curvell could see military personnel moving with purpose but not panic. Ambassador, Chen said warmly, I assume you are calling about the Void Scourge? You know? We detected them 3 days ago. Impressive fleet. Very intimidating. Curvell felt his heart sink. Admiral, you must evacuate. The Council will provide transport ships on that's kind of you, but we are not evacuating. Curvell stopped. What? We are not evacuating, Chen repeated. We are going to stop them. Admiral, you do not understand. The Void Scourge cannot be stopped. They are not like other enemies. They do not negotiate, they cannot be reasoned with. So we have heard. Which is why we have been preparing for something like this for 200 years. Chen gestured, and the display split to show human military installations across dozens of systems. Weapons platforms that Kervil had never seen before. Ships that looked like they could crack planets. Defense networks that spanned entire star systems. We have been watching the Council prepare for threats, Chen said. We noticed you always plan for retreat. For survival. For waiting things out. Very sensible. Very logical. But humans do not retreat when people need protecting. We have 10,000 worlds, Ambassador. Billions of people, human and alien both, who call our space home. We do not abandon them. We defend them. Against 2 million ships? Admiral, that is suicide. Chen smiled. It was not a confident smile. It was something else. Something Kervil had seen before in human expressions, but never fully understood. It was determination. Maybe, Chen said. Probably even. But we are going to try anyway. Because that is what humans do. We see something impossible and we try anyway. The communication ended. Kervil sat in shock, then immediately opened a channel to the Council. Humanity refuses to evacuate, he reported. They are preparing to fight the Void Scourge. Fools, someone said. They will be wiped out. Perhaps we should watch, Threlix suggested. We may learn something. The Council activated every observation platform in human space, watching as humanity prepared for war. What they saw was unprecedented. Humanity did not just prepare alone. They called on every ally, every trade partner, every species they had helped over the centuries. And they came. The young Karashi brought their fleet. The merchant Tilani provided resources. The warrior Morin sent their finest soldiers. Species the Council barely knew existed showed up offering ships, weapons, supplies. They are calling in every favor, Kervil realized. Every friendship, every alliance, every debt owed. Within 2 weeks, a fleet of 50,000 ships had assembled in human space. Not just human ships, a combined force of 200 different species, many of whom had never fought together before. It is still not enough, the military coordinator said. 50,000 against 2 million? Impossible odds. Threlix leaned forward, watching the data streams. Remember what I wrote in my report 2,000 years ago? Humans treat impossible as a challenge, not a limit. The first contact with the Void Scourge came at the edge of human space, a minor colony world with a population of 10 million. The human fleet did not try to fight the Scourge ships head-on. Instead, they evacuated the planet's population in 3 days using every civilian ship in the sector, then turned the planet into a trap. When the Scourge arrived, they found a world rigged with weapons, automated defenses, and enough explosives to crack the planet's crust. The humans detonated it. All 20,000 Scourge ships destroyed in a single explosion. They sacrificed an entire planet. Someone whispered in the Council chambers. They saved 10 million people and killed 20,000 enemy ships, Kervil corrected. That is victory by any measure. The pattern repeated across human space. Evacuate civilians, turn infrastructure into weapons, make every system cost the Scourge dearly. And the allied species followed the human example, learning the tactics in real time. But the Scourge kept coming. 6 months into the war, humanity had lost 400 worlds. 30,000 allied ships destroyed. The Scourge had lost 800,000 ships but still had more than 1 million left.